Carmilla also exhibited strange habits, wandering the castle grounds at night, sometimes in a trance-like state, and often sleeping at odd hours during the day. Laura would sometimes wake in the middle of the night to find Carmilla's bed empty, only to later encounter her walking silently through the corridors, her eyes distant and vacant, her expression unreadable. These instances left Laura feeling a peculiar chill in the air, though she couldn't bring herself to believe there was any real cause for alarm. The physical connection between them also became increasingly evident. Laura would notice that her own health began to falter subtly. She became more pale and fatigued, her energy seemingly sapped after spending time with Carmilla. At times, she would awake in the morning with strange sensations of dizziness, as though she had been drained in some inexplicable way. Her dreams, too, were disturbed, full of images of Carmilla, vivid and haunting dreams where the two were alone in dark, shadowy places, surrounded by an overwhelming sense of dread. Yet, when Laura awoke from these dreams, she would dismiss them as nothing more than the product of an overactive imagination. It was difficult to pinpoint exactly why Laura's health seemed to deteriorate, and she could not bring herself to attribute it to Carmilla. In fact, she pushed away these thoughts whenever they crossed her mind, convinced that there was nothing truly sinister behind it. Her fascination with Carmilla only deepened as they continued to share their evenings together, their conversations growing more intimate and their bond becoming more intense. Still, there was something hidden beneath the surface, something that Laura, in her naivety, failed to see. Throughout their interactions, Carmilla would occasionally speak of her past, but the details were always vague, elusive, and shrouded in mystery. She told Laura of a family, one that seemed both distant and untouchable, and of a life that had been marked by tragedy and loss. But when Laura pressed her for specifics, Carmilla would merely smile cryptically and change the subject, leaving Laura frustrated yet ever more intrigued. Her reluctance to divulge details only heightened Laura's fascination with her. At times, Carmilla spoke of the places she had traveled, of the people she had known, and of a deep connection to a land and heritage long forgotten. Her stories were filled with strange, haunting imagery, tales of ancestors whose names were lost to time, of rituals and customs that seemed both ancient and alien. Laura listened with rapt attention, captivated by the sheer beauty and mystery of Carmilla's words, but always feeling as though she were on the cusp of uncovering something far darker. Carmilla's reluctance to provide more concrete information only served to strengthen the sense that there was more to her than met the eye. Carmilla's vagueness about her origins and past would sometimes frustrate Laura, who found herself desperate to know more. But each time Laura inquired further, Carmilla would offer only fleeting glimpses into a past that seemed to be shrouded in some unspoken darkness. Her evasiveness was not lost on Laura, though she was too enamored with the woman before her to fully question the implications of it. Carmilla would laugh lightly, her eyes twinkling with an almost mocking amusement, as though the mysteries of her past were merely a game to her. As the days passed, the bond between Laura and Carmilla grew ever stronger. They spent long hours in each other's company, sharing their most personal thoughts and feelings. Laura felt as though she could confide in Carmilla about anything, and, in turn, Carmilla seemed to offer a strange solace, as though she were offering her own twisted form of understanding. Their conversations took on an almost hypnotic quality, with Carmilla drawing Laura deeper into her web, her words soothing and enchanting, yet laced with an undercurrent of something darker. As they spent more time together, Laura became increasingly aware of the strange connection that seemed to exist between them. It was as though they were bound by an invisible force, an unspoken understanding that went beyond mere friendship. Laura's feelings toward Carmilla grew increasingly complex. She was both fascinated and disturbed, drawn in by Carmilla's beauty and mystery while simultaneously sensing that there was something far more dangerous lurking beneath the surface. Yet, despite these troubling feelings, Laura could not pull herself away. She felt as though she were caught in a web from which there was no escape. Laura, who has become both emotionally and physically tied to Carmilla, continues to ignore the mounting signs of something deeply wrong. Her fascination, combined with her growing obsession, blinds her to the darker forces at work. And Carmilla, ever the enigma, continues to draw her in, weaving a dangerous spell from which Laura may never escape. Laura's fascination with Carmilla deepens as she spends more time with her. They share long, intimate conversations late into the night, their words growing increasingly personal. Carmilla's beauty seems almost supernatural, and Laura finds herself unable to resist her allure. But even as Laura grows closer to her, there is an undeniable sense of something strange about Carmilla's presence. Though Carmilla's beauty and charm are undeniable, her behavior becomes increasingly strange over time. She frequently exhibits a curious tendency to isolate herself from others, and her interactions with Laura are sometimes marked by unusual, almost hypnotic moments. She often seems to gaze at Laura with an intensity that goes beyond mere affection, and Laura occasionally feels as though Carmilla is looking through her, rather than at her. There are also times when Carmilla's behavior takes on a more aggressive tone, though this too is fleeting and easily overlooked. For instance, during one of their late-night conversations, Carmilla leans in close to Laura and, in a voice filled with strange intensity, speaks of the beauty of the night and the allure of darkness. Her words seem oddly foreboding, but again, Laura dismisses the feeling as a fleeting moment of eccentricity. There are also times when Carmilla appears to be asleep, but then suddenly wakes with an almost unnatural alertness. She seems to be in a constant state of tension, as though waiting for something, though Laura is unable to figure out what. Carmilla's strange behavior does not go unnoticed by the household staff or Laura's father, though they all seem to chalk it up to the girl's youth and mysterious background. As Laura spends more time with Carmilla, she begins to notice other oddities that she had previously ignored. Carmilla occasionally exhibits signs of heightened sensitivity to light and sound, and her nocturnal activities become more pronounced. She seems to be a creature of the night, often staying up late, while Laura falls into a deep, almost unnatural sleep. During these times, Carmilla's presence is always near, though Laura can never quite understand what Carmilla does during the hours when she is not in her company. Despite the oddities and unsettling moments, Laura's attachment to Carmilla only grows. The two women continue to share a strong, almost telepathic bond. Laura begins to feel that Carmilla is a kindred spirit, someone who understands her better than anyone else. The connection between them seems deep and unbreakable, yet at the same time, Laura is often disturbed by her own growing dependence on Carmilla. She becomes unable to imagine her life without her, and Carmilla's presence starts to overshadow everything else. Carmilla's influence over Laura becomes more pronounced, and she begins to have vivid dreams that are increasingly filled with imagery of Carmilla. These dreams blur the line between fantasy and reality, and Laura often wakes with a sense of unease that she cannot fully explain. It is as though the boundary between the waking world and the dream world is slowly dissolving. Yet, Laura persists in her belief that Carmilla is simply eccentric, Her oddities are simply part of her mysterious, tragic past, and Laura convinces herself that these strange behaviors are part of her charm. Still, there is always something that gnaws at Laura's conscience, a feeling that something is not quite right. She begins to wonder if she is merely imagining things or if Carmilla's presence is, in fact, something much more sinister. As Carmilla draws to a close, the relationship between Laura and Carmilla has reached a turning point. The intimacy between them is undeniable, but so too is the unsettling nature of Carmilla's behavior. Laura continues to be captivated by her, yet she begins to question whether there is something more beneath the surface of Carmilla's beauty and charm. The mysteries surrounding Carmilla's past and her increasingly strange actions only deepen the intrigue, leaving Laura with a sense of growing dread and anticipation. This chapter marks the beginning of a transformation in Laura. While she is still unaware of the true nature of Carmilla, the bond between them has been firmly established. It is a connection that will ultimately lead Laura down a path of discovery, one that will reveal the terrifying truth about Carmilla's true nature and the sinister forces at work around them.